Honorable speakers and distinguished delegates, hello and good afternoon. My name is Nisha and I'm from Avtar. On behalf of Team Avtar and Working Mother, it is my pleasure to welcome you all once again. I will be the session manager and MC for this session. This breakaway session consists of two TED-style talks. This Bob exclusive session will bring to center stage the innovative best practices on diversity, equity, and inclusion from Adobe and Wells Fargo, both part of the 2021 Working Mother and Avtar 100 Best Companies for Women in India listing. Please join me in welcoming our first speaker, Ms. Amrita Madiah, Director, Talent Development, India, Adobe. Amrita is the India leader for diversity and inclusion, talent management, and talent development. In this role, her team is focused on building an integrated employee experience across these three pillars. She will be speaking on the topic Women Executives Shadow Training, that is called WEST. Towards the end of the presentations, there will be an opportunity to ask questions to the speakers. Please do mention the name of the speaker to whom your question is addressed and post your questions using the Q&A button in this room. We will address all your questions towards the end of the session. Looking forward to having a wonderful day filled with a lot of learning. Thank you for joining us today, Amrita. Over to you.
So the Women's Executive Shadow Program, or WESP, India chapter, is what I'm talking to you about today. But WESP actually has a really long history in Adobe. And in India, it has a history since 2014. Now, you might say that's not a really long history. But when you find out that this is actually an employee-driven, volunteer-run program for women and by women, not necessarily with women, and I'll tell you why in a moment, it makes this entire program that much more exciting. So while the Executive Shadow Program started out with one of our very enterprising leaders, women leaders in North America, in 2014, some of our colleagues here in India, 5 to be precise, were very excited and wanted to bring the program here into India, and that's what they did. Now, what I will tell you in all the upcoming slides is about the program and how it has actually grown over time. But I do want to start by saying the reason why this is really special is it's not just about a program for women's development. It's actually about a volunteer movement by a set of very committed women who along the way have found multiple benefits for a program that started with a very specific intention, which was to actually create a situation where women could feel empowered, and they didn't need very specific organization-driven programs to make that happen. Now, this is also special because I'm sure many of you would agree, a lot of programs we run within our organizations typically are for high potential talent or key talent or a very specific group of people you're looking to develop. And there are probably fewer such programs that are meant for everybody without distinction about where they sit in your talent pool. This is one of those programs that still has a very high impact, great recall, and multiple benefits, even though it didn't start out very specifically focusing on we'll only look at a small set of people. So let me tell you a little bit more. I told you it's voluntary driven, right? So the volunteers of the Women's Executive Shadow Program actually set up what they call their Zen statement. And you should see that in a moment. It's very cool because it is community driven, like I've told you, and by volunteers. But their objective is to make sure that they can create an opportunity for all women who apply and who are participating to be able to network. We all know, we hear that very often is a big challenge for women. To either have the opportunity for networking or sometimes an awkwardness to do so. And obviously an opportunity to learn and grow. And like I said, the goals really were empower every woman who applies or gets a chance to be part of this program to explore what their growth and development could look like and what are those avenues. It also goes one step further because it provides them with connections, people they can speak with, and opportunities to discover more about themselves. And finally, it also helps them build skills. So I think it has great impact in just the way it is thought about in its Zen statement. So for a second, you'll see here's what I was talking about. It's also meant to be really a continuous all-round experience and all year-round experience. While it runs typically for 3 to 4 months, the relationships and networks that are set up here, they tend to live a lot longer than the program actually does. So what is this program and what has actually been happening? Here's the history I was talking about in India. So in 2014, like I said, there were 5 women, very enterprising, who did the same things that were being done in the US. And what was that? You applied for the program, you got selected, and you got paired with a senior leader in India to shadow them for a day in their workday. And through that observation and opportunity to engage with them, you got to learn a whole lot more about how they do what they do. What was the requirement to be in the program? You had to state what you were looking to learn, how you would make the best use of that leader's time, and which leader you would like to shadow. And that's how the program began. It was, needless to say, it was super successful. It was very inspiring. And I think all of the leaders that got involved also equally agreed that they learned a lot from having somebody observe them through the day. The timeline you see here, I think, speaks for itself. We've had this program running every year with this voluntary group of people, and many members have remained exactly the same from the beginning, and several have been new members co-opted during the course of each new chapter every year. So by 2016, this group of people had realized that one day of mentorship was not possible for everyone who applies. I'll tell you in a moment how many people are applying and how many hours of time is actually spent on this program. The other thing they realized was that we don't have as many senior leaders who can provide us the same kind of time in that window when we're running this program. So what happens then to the number of people who are applying? And so was born a 3-month mentoring program to actually extend the opportunity to A, more women who applied, B, to include more leaders who could be mentors, 3, to extend the amount of time that this engagement took place so that it wasn't limited to just one day. Great success. Obviously, it went on all the way until what you see, WESP 5.0. And then in 2020, the world changed for us, quite obviously. So what did we do? We just switched everything around to virtual as we learned to do everything virtually. Here's what is really exciting of what happened in 21. While this continued to be virtual, this group of folks also said, hey, listen, we now have a really exponential number of people applying for the program. And there's a lot more folks there saying, we really want to get this opportunity. How can you make it available? And so we introduced group mentoring, as well as mentors globally. Quick snapshot. When you talk about, how we did this, we basically got leaders, shadowing leaders through their day, but making sure that it was about one day, maybe 4 to 8 hours, probably split over multiple days. And then the selection criteria was also to say that there should be women who have at least 10 plus years of experience, so that the way that they engage with these senior leaders can be a lot more meaningful for them, depending on where they are in their career. And we invited leaders globally and not just from India. So broader perspective. The other piece we did was, in addition to the one-on-one mentoring, also did group mentoring. So a lot more people could actually get this opportunity over 3 months. Personally, I thought that was a great idea that came up from this team, and an even better execution and experience from them. So who are all these people and what are they getting as a result of this 3-month experience? Here it is. Of course, it's all virtual that you see here, but they also found out that, when all of these women were polled as to why do you want to be in this program? Okay, I know you want to learn from a senior executive. Most folks tell you when they're more, ahead in their careers that they would like a mentor, and a lot of people who are really new in their careers who want a mentor. What else do you want? And then there was a whole host of skills that people wanted to learn or get a little more understanding so they could make career choices. So we had a bunch of open houses or external speakers as well. Let me give you a sample of how this turned out. In 21, now think 2014, 5 people, 2021, 70 women who applied and who were selected. More than 70 applied, by the way, I'll show that to you too. And of them, we had folks going to the one-day shadow where they shadowed a leader, depending on who was available. There was folks who went to group mentoring, and there are lots of them who also chose one-on-one mentoring. And what you see at the bottom is all the different skills that these different women asked to learn, and therefore were born those multiple sessions with external speakers or internal leaders. So just like that, without intervention from HR or employee experience, as we call it at Adobe, or any other formal structure or system. A group of well-meaning, very committed women volunteers who have experienced the power of mentorship in the past and are willing to pay it forward have put together a program that any L&D professional would probably look at and say, yeah, that's exactly what I would do if I was designing, a mentorship program which was meant, say, specifically for all women. And that's what they did. Why is this so fascinating? Look at the applications. This is the number of people who've been applying. 2020 clearly was a lot harder. A lot of people thinking about whether they should or they shouldn't apply because they didn't know how much more time they could, afford for the program. But just look on the right and at the mentoring hours. That's gone up. I don't even know how to explain the number of hours here. But here is something that turned out every single year. I'm sure all of you are familiar with this. Everyone who signed up to be a mentor came back and said at the end of the program, my God, I learned a lot more than I even thought I could. I thought I was supposed to give back to, my colleagues, but I learned so much and they mentored me. There was a lot of reverse mentoring that happened. And as a result, we have a lot of people who come back year on year and offer their time for this mentorship program. And that's not a small amount of time. So that's what they do as well. This really does make me pause and think about the power of community and the power of empowerment. The ability to think that if I have a good idea that I think has value and will benefit certain set of people or some people or whatever might be the criteria, within this organization, there's really no reason that it won't be supported. And that's exactly what has happened with WESP. We have had an executive sponsor since we started out this program. One of our senior leaders in the business typically is a guide on the side for this group, but they run practically everything. And this mentor guide that we have, or executive sponsor, also makes sure that when we're looking at things like getting, for example, external speakers, or if we're looking to include a lot of our global leaders as part of the mentorship program, they help bridge the gap or make the connections. But let me take nothing away from our core team and say that at least 90% of everything that happens in the WESP program is purely due to them. And that, again, to me, is a great example of empowerment and people in the groups believing that a good idea that has value has absolutely enough wings to fly. So what are people saying and doing as highlights from this program? I just spoke about some of it. There's sponsorship by leaders. It's very well known. There's a lot of program awareness. That's what drives up the number of applications. Good question, though, to ask is, if you have 200, 400, 500 people applying, why aren't all the women in Adobe applying? And we certainly have at least a time and a half more. Good question. And I think the answer to that is also about whether mentorship is really the only way everybody would like to learn, or those that are really interested and want to use mentorship as their opportunity in that year and at that time apply. I tend to believe the latter is true. There have been a lot of people who've applied a couple of years in a row and then found out that, look, I didn't get selected this time. I'm going to try again. So let me tell you a little bit about selection. Employee experience, or HR, has nothing to do with this selection. Surprise, right? But fabulous surprise. The business has nothing to do with the selection. If I want to be in this program, when they float an application, I apply. I just need to have had a conversation with my manager to let them know this is what I'm doing. And hopefully they don't think that it's going to get in the way of any of the work that I have to do. I've rarely seen that ever happen. The only thing we might do is a check for those. And then, of course, the WESP committee picks the women who will be in the program based on their responses to some of the questions that they ask. So the entire program selection is done by themselves with no interference from any other, employee experience or HR groups. Only if we need to check to see has someone resigned or is probably looking to leave the country and move to another country through Adobe, or there could be some shifts. That's the only thing. What has all of this resulted in? Well, as you see over here, not just has it been year on year, but mentors, 40% have come back. The alumni is constantly looking at giving back, and that's why we have new people and new members of the core team. We have, like you said, an increase in applications. The text on the slide is enough to tell you what the women who apply for the program think about the program. But most importantly, I think it has turned out to be a very wholesome experience for everybody involved. Whether you're the WESP core committee, you're someone who signed up to be mentored, whether you're a mentor, you came in as an external speaker, or you came in to teach a skill. And to me, that's a success right around. That's what I wanted to share with you today. And I hope that this has helped give you some insight into what we do at Adobe around this program. I would be completely remiss if I don't talk about the team. So here they are. This is the current core team for WESP, and right down at the bottom right-hand corner is our executive sponsor for this program. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you so much for this insightful session on the WESP program, Amrita. Our second speaker is Ms. Sarada Vempati, Lead Technology Infrastructure, Wells Fargo, India and Philippines. A passionate champion of DEI over many years, she is part of the DEI Council at Wells Fargo, India and Philippines, and leads the inclusion initiatives on gender and persons with disabilities. She will be speaking on the topic neurodiversity. Thank you for joining us today, Sarada. Over to you.
Hi, I'm Sarada Vempati, and I have been with Wells Fargo since March of 2020. I have been a passionate champion of diversity, equity, and inclusion for many years. I'm part of the DEI Council at Wells Fargo, India, and Philippines, and also lead the inclusion initiatives on gender as well as persons with disabilities. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about neurodiversity and what we are doing within Wells Fargo, India, and Philippines. What is neurodiversity? Neurodiversity is the range of differences in individuals and how their brain functions and their behavioral traits regarded as varieties in the human population. It includes inherent cognitive differences such as autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit disorder, as well as Tourette syndrome. There are a few others which are included as part of neurodiversity. Why did we at Wells Fargo start on this journey? With the dynamic marketplace and evolving customer needs, we as an organization are continuously looking and are focused on attracting a broad and diverse set of talent to make us effective and successful. If you look at the data surrounding persons with disabilities and the talent available in the market, based on the 2011 India Census report, there are 2.7 crore individuals under the PWD category. A large portion of this population is in the employable age between 20 to 59. Research also suggests that the country is losing close to 7% of its GDP due to the exclusion of people with disabilities from the labor force. So we are talking about a pretty large workforce that we can tap into and we can bring into the organization. If you look in the Indian context, the access to education and appropriate training as well as learning methodologies, especially in the young age for the neurodiverse spectrum, is very scarce when we compare it to any of the other developed nations. Therefore, there is a gap between the market demand and the skilled talent available in the space. We have learned that there is an opportunity for us with suitable learning opportunities given to the people on the neurodiverse spectrum to develop them and make sure that we can leverage the skill sets when it is technology friendly environment. Additionally, with appropriate domain and process training, neurodiverse candidates can perform many tasks, especially they're very good at process-oriented tasks. With this in the background, it made business sense for us to invest in this talent pool that will be mutually beneficial and also has a long-term focus and driver for us. How did we go about doing this? What did we do first? If you look at it, our first goal was to understand the best practices both internally within Wells Fargo and what has been done, as well as externally to make sure we set ourselves up for success. From an internal standpoint, we met with Wells Fargo Enterprise Neurodiversity team as they started their journey in 2020 and also absorbed the first batch of neurodiverse employees. Externally, we did multiple industry connects on best practices and the journey that other firms have been working on, as well as with our community partners. In this journey, it was key for us to collaborate with community partners and industry leaders while we stay engaged. One of the community partners that we work with and we are continuing to work with is Enable India. Leveraging the expertise of a community partner in this field, especially in the first year when we are setting up the process, is critical and an important step. For maximum impact, we finalized on the train, intern, and hire model for the first cohort of individuals that we are bringing in. While we were focused on internally equipping our ecosystem, we did a bunch of different steps. We had leadership awareness sessions on neurodiversity, and we also commemorated the Autism Awareness Month with sessions for our employees on having the ability to look at early detection of children with neurodiversity, as well as making sure we have discussions with employees who are in the neurodiverse spectrum. It was important for us to build our employee of choice brand along with this in parallel. In that light, we also sponsored a masterclass on neurodiversity at NASSCOM DEI Summit in March. We believe that this is a collective journey and invited companies to partner with us to kickstart this journey along with their respective organizations. How did we go about doing this? Our strategy for talent attraction was simple. Start small, figure out the strategic roles that we want to place these candidates, and enable support mechanisms that make us successful. Our cohort for train, intern, and hire model was devised very thoughtfully along with Enable India. We broke this down into 4 phases. Phase 1 was job analysis. This was the most important part of the process as we needed to identify the best suited roles for potential candidates, leveraging the experience of our community partner and enterprise teams. We narrowed it down to both technology as well as operations roles. On the phase 2 of this process, we worked on sourcing and training of candidates. We sourced a cohort of 15 candidates through the community partner with continued engagement by the Wells Fargo core team. We dedicated investment in a training curriculum which lasted 14 weeks that was split into 2 parts. The first part was employability and life skills, and the second one included technology and banking basics. The modules were delivered both by internal as well as external facilitators. There were regular Wells Fargo connects with these candidates throughout the training period. Phase 3 consisted of the Super Week and internship. This consisted of a week-long interaction with the managers of the employees, as well as presentation to senior leadership. A true moment of pride for all of us is that we were able to absorb all the 15 candidates from this training batch, and they have been selected for internships. Phase 4 is consisting of onboarding and integration. The manager and peer sensitization sessions are continuing, and assistive technology and accommodations that are critical for the success of this program are being implemented. There is continued engagement with our community partner throughout the 3 months of internship that is ongoing. What is our way forward? We will continue to focus on a holistic strategy to attract, develop, and retain neurodiverse talent. Our goal is also to build an external ecosystem of neurodiverse talent while enhancing our employer of choice brand internally. We will continue to train intern hire cohorts and also look at lateral hiring in strategic manner. We will continue with the sensitization of our workforce while enhancing the assistive technology and infrastructure requirements. We believe in developing allies at work, promoting allyship and awareness within Wells Fargo through Employee Resource Network and the DEI Council. We will be commemorating key dates such as Autism Awareness Month as well as Neurodiverse Celebration Week. Externally, we will continue to promote through thought leadership, through supporting industry research. We are the co-sponsors of a community business upcoming research on the neurodiverse landscape, and we are truly excited about this. Our focus is also to build a pipeline in partnership with academic institutions. We'll continue to engage with other organizations through industry connects, regionally and globally, as we believe that this is a success that will come for all of us together, and we have to work towards it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the thought-provoking session, Sarada. We will now have time for the question-answer session, and we have some interesting questions. So our first question is to you, Amrita. This is related to the WESP program that you spoke about. The first question is this program only for Adobe employees, or can anyone apply? If yes, how do we really do that?
Oh, thank you for asking. That's wonderful that you think you'd like to apply if the program was open. No, it isn't right now open for people outside of Adobe. It is completely an employee initiative for employees, but I'll be sure to let the team know that there's at least one person, if not many more like you, who would be interested. What this does tell me is, the need to be able to get a mentor and have a conversation without all the bells and whistles of certain formalities and, paperwork obviously makes everything that much more appealing. And I think that's what we're aiming to do. So thanks for asking. And maybe organizations that, you come from or others that work with, if there's a way to replicate something that's a little more informal but a lot more inclusive, that could also help solve the problem. Yeah, short answer. Not yet.
Thank you. Thank you, Amrita. That makes me comes to my next question, which is, if there are organizations that would like to start off a shadowing program like this, where do they start? How do they really go about it? What are the few steps that you would suggest?
If you use us as an example, this is a great idea. Let's do it. Roll up the sleeves and get going. But you don't try to solve for everything at one go, right? So there's also choices here. If you notice, shadowing and mentorship are not the same thing at all. And it started out as a shadow program for one day with senior leaders. So that's sometimes feels scalable, but you also know that not all your senior leaders are able to give you time at the same time when you want to run it like an event. So I would say a good idea is first to figure out who's the audience you're trying to do this in service of. As you can see in this case, it's completely volunteer driven, and everybody's welcome to apply. So if that's the canvas you want to take, and therefore you could probably float, ways to find out who's interested and what would people like to get. The way this program has been built, Nisha, largely is by seeking feedback. So this group of volunteers constantly sends out these little surveys to say, what else do you want to know? We're not promising to do everything you ask, but tell us what you're looking for and start to build from there. What they also never did was promise what they're going to be able to deliver beforehand. So it's always, let's understand first. And I think that's a great way to begin, because formal mentorship programs, as all of you probably know, it's very difficult to sustain and maintain, to find people, have them sign up, everyone gives time. You need to like the mentor like my mentee likes, there's chemistry. When you get out of the business of matchmaking, get into the business of creating opportunity, it's much more scalable. So I would say seek input and hear what people want first, understand who the audience is that you're trying to service, and then keep it really simple to begin with. And sometimes if that's all it does year on year, it'll still have a great amount of impact.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Amrita. My next question is to you, Sharada, and the question is, what steps Wells Fargo is taking to accommodate the needs of people who are neurodiverse, specifically belonging to the autism spectrum, and are there any specific programs when it comes to skilling them?
Sure. So the way we have run this program, right, is making sure that we train, we intern, and we hire. So it's a process that we are going through. It's prolonged. We understand it, but we are willing to make the investment. We are spending the time to come to the conclusion that is going to be good for all of us. So when we talk about it, if you look at it, we have been working with a community partner all through this month. We have spent quite a good bit of the early part of this year just trying to understand. We didn't want to start off big and lead ourselves to failures. We said we'll go with a small cohort. We'll do a lot of sensitization trainings internally, but at the same time, look at any specific needs, whether it is technology needs that the employee will have, and make sure that we can accommodate it and what are the changes we need to bring. So I would think of it as fourfold, right? The first one would be build allies at work. Make sure that our employees are sensitive, the managers are sensitive, their co-workers are sensitive. When I'm talking about sensitization, just being aware of what it means. Again, it is not specific to a particular candidate, but what does it mean? What does somebody with a neurodiverse candidate need at workplace? So we are doing this across the board. And from a technology perspective, obviously around technology infrastructure, it's very close to my heart. How can we accommodate any specific needs that the employees have? And working with a community partner gives us that additional advantage. They have spent a lot of time and they give us feedback specific to a candidate on what is it that they would need and how can we make sure that we do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, those inputs, Sharada. Related to the same aspect, my next question is, when we have specific initiatives related to neurodiversity, what are some of the challenges that might come up, specifically when it comes to changing mindsets, so how do you, and apart from that, even, challenges at different levels, how do you go about managing these challenges across different levels?
Sure. Multiple different things, right? First of all, obviously, social media, the movies create a perception of somebody who's on an autism or a neurodiverse spectrum, right? So everybody comes with a perception, biases that come in. And they either expect them to be extremely artistic or having a very high IQ. Those are things that we have to first address. When we talk about sensitization, when we say this is a spectrum, we're talking about multiple levels of functional aspects that they bring into it. That's one set of it. The other part of it is when we are working through sometimes the conversations we are used to, the speed with which we talk, and the expectation that they will immediately respond back, how they interact with us. All of those we have to tune ourselves. When I was doing some of these programs, when I was meeting with these candidates, we have so much information that we want to share. We want to make sure that we engage them. We go with the best of heart, but at the same time, how you communicate, the pace that you communicate, again, they absorb all of it, but how you are giving that information and sharing that information makes a difference. And that's something that I have learned personally, Nisha, and all of us through our sensitization and awareness programs have been making sure our teams are also picking it up.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sharada. Amrita, the next question is to you. And this question is there a structured mentoring agenda covering any particular topics?
Interesting you ask. Over time, I think the way our core team has evolved this program has been to see how much structure to provide and how much freedom to create and allow, right? Because the minute you add more structure, you start to go and do exactly what the structured mentorship programs end up doing, and it doesn't distinguish one from the other. So it's a lot of guidelines more than structure, right? And suggestions. For example, suggestions to journal what you got out of these conversations, suggestions on how to prepare for your first meeting with your mentor, suggestions on what you could be seeking mentorship around. And why I say suggestions is there are a lot of our people practices where we aren't using very hard and fast, this is the only way to do it, but we provide templates, we provide guidance around it, but we don't necessarily hold you to this is the only way to do it. I can see that this core team has also used the same approach. What it has resulted in, is if you focus on the outcome and not the means to the outcome, the success of that outcome and the chances of richness of outcome, we've seen a lot better. So for example, if we're asking people to start by saying, what do you really want to feel at the end of 3 months? What do you want to be able to say at the end of 3 months and walk away with? And have all these women who've signed up for mentorship articulate that, then the means to the end seems much easier and simpler, no matter what template they use and what approach they take. And we do the same even with the mentors to say, why are you in this? And what do you really want to feel like at the end of this period of time? And then help the two evolve that journey. I found that to be a much more empowering process. So, just give you tools which you can use when you want to, but have you kind of figure out your goalposts before you get started. And to me, this program, that's the beauty of it. I feel like if it had been crafted by the L&D function, and I'm saying so myself, we would have fallen in the trap of providing a lot more structure and templates and formats. That's the beauty of this not being, HR driven, but driven by people who've been through the experience themselves. So yeah, that's how it is. It's unstructured, structured, if you will.
Right. And is there a process of identifying mentors with the mentees?
Yeah, so I have to say there's a secret sauce in here, which the core team keeps close to them. Like I said, everybody else is out of influence. But I think what they do is, everyone who wants to be a mentor signs up to say they want to be a mentor and also why they want to do so, and what are some of the areas that they think they could be good at mentoring, right? Where they'd be comfortable. And you ask similar questions of the mentees, so they use that really to make the match. And I think over many years now, even the core team has figured out how to do this to do the matchmaking without any serious artificial intelligence. I think it's common sense that they use.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Amrita. We have 2 questions for you, Sarada. The first one is, are there any advanced sensitization enablement programs for managers who would be working very closely with team members from, the neurodiverse community?
Yes, Nisha, we are absolutely doing that. And we know that this is going to be a critical aspect from a success standpoint. Again, we are being very careful in making sure that it's a very broad spectrum of people that we are bringing in and training them rather than identifying specific managers and putting them through the training. We feel that as an organization, our success will depend on sensitization across the board, all of the managers. And that's been from the get-go, from the time we decided we are going to start on this neurodiversity journey. We started working on that along with our community partners, along with our, as well as our learning and development teams. Absolutely.
Right. And are the interns placed in the same team, unit, or with different managers? That's another question that has come up.
I'm trying to understand interns as in the
those who are recruited freshly to the team. So how does that team placement in specific teams, assigning them to specific managers? I think that is insight into that particular process is something, that question is all about.
Absolutely. I just touched on it briefly when I was speaking a little bit earlier. We do this super week, and we did it where we allow all of the employees, the interns, make presentations. They talk about topics that they're passionate about, and we allow all the managers to listen in. There is no specific criteria that we are doing to say that we are matching them, but we feel that all of them have an equal opportunity to succeed in the organization, and we are putting them both in technology as well as in operations roles.
All right. The last question is, can you quote some examples where you've imbibed technological changes for neurodiverse employees?
So at this point, we do not have anything specific from a technology standpoint that we did in relation to neurodiverse space. In other areas, we had to make some adjustments and bring in enhancements from an infrastructure standpoint. As they come along, as they come and become full-time employees of ours, if we start noticing anything specific, we are very open. We are ready to make the changes that are required. It could be something to do with our audio conferencing. It could be something that how we actually communicate through unified communication tools. If there are tweaks that we have to do, we are absolutely open to that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all those insights and inputs. Thank you so much, dear Amrita and Sharada, for sharing with us your inspirational experiences of how different aspects of DI and initiatives is embedded throughout your respective organizations through these innovative initiatives. So we've come to the close of this breakout session. Thank you very much, dear delegates.